All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the public tending call that takes place in the Broom Radio once a month. Um, and Tenders and today's January 25th, 2024. And I have Tenders with me here, and we'll basically be recording our tending meeting. Tending is an organization within the Broom Discord that is, I'd say from my perspective, responsible for tending the garden that is the Broom through various different means, including and not restricted to posting the podcast, organizing events in the Broom, um, bringing life to the Broom through conversational means, through challenging other people in conversation, and yeah, I just want to thank anyone who is listening to this episode for being part of this public governance process. And what I mean by that is that recording these calls is a chance for the organizational structure of tending to be public facing and also embody the spirit of transparency. So, yeah, thanks for being here with us. So right now I'm going to share a copy of the goal setting document that has commonalities. That's the one that I'm looking at. However, if others want a different copy, then let me know. I'll just have to dig for that and share it with you guys. Yes. I'm just reading the chat now. Nobu adds open cultivation, dare I say. I would agree. I would absolutely agree with that. Um, so we just finished doing temperature check. And now I'm going to go through the production channel to look at the different pins. But as I look through the pins, I want to hold space to see if there is any production project that anyone wants to talk about um, before, before I jump into the pins. So, definitely that aligns. Nova writes in the chat, I would say let's review the goal setting exercise first. Let's. So I'm going to read the questions out loud. Um, oh, yeah, this is the document that has everyone's submission on it. Awesome. I'm going to read the questions out loud. That way, those who are listening can kind of anchor themselves into what they're hearing about, but also so that those who are here as tenders can refresh themselves on some of these questions. So the goal setting was a project or a production cycle that we were working on collectively to set up some goals for different commitments, different ways, I guess, of looking at the capacity that we have to offer the Broom as tenders. Um, and that's the simple way of putting it. So the first question is, what is the Broom to you? The second question is, what are your honest intentions regarding personal productivity and the time you plan to dedicate to the Broom? And the second part of that question is, how do you envision your time commitment for the next year? The next question is, what roles and services do you think we can offer? What will those who provide those services need in return? And number 4, what tasks or projects do you want on our agenda for the upcoming year and or month? And so I guess I'll say, or just ask, yeah, as we take this time to like review this goal setting document, I think we initially, most people were working on their responses somewhere in September of 2023 to October 2023. So that's been September, October, November, December, January. That's been 6 months. And I actually just want to like hold space to see or to ask you all and hear your responses to the question of 3 months. Oh, my math. Thank you for that. By the time we finished. Oh, yes. Yes. Thank you. I guess I was just kind of thinking about how long people have had to like reflect on these questions. Um, and yeah, I would like to hold space, I guess, first to see if anyone would like to narrate um, how their goals went or like how they've been doing regarding their personal goals. Like yeah, like if you want to like offer like a brief couple sentence synopsis. Um, and then yeah, I think a general temperature check on how the projects that or the productions that each of us is working on, either together or separately, how you would want it to go. Like so maybe like another brief 2 to 3 sentence synopsis. But you don't have to like it doesn't have to be 2 to 3 sentences. Um, so yeah, I would love to hold space to um, hear your responses. Not all at once.
I kind of feel like the process of like getting from goal setting to where we are now, I wouldn't say like it hasn't taken a lot of like hard work, but it does feel effortless in the sense where it's like it doesn't feel like I'm like it feels effortless, but what I'm saying is it feels effortless, but it doesn't. But I don't feel like that means that it hasn't been like, or it hasn't taken hard work, you know?
Mhm.
But it feels like, it doesn't feel like I've had to like force myself to look back at the document and like I'm kind of at a loss for words, but yeah, I'm pretty content with like how it's unfolded. And I just saw that I had written or like I had talked about circle, and I'm just kind of glad that like I finally decided to change the shape of that container. Like that feels like it's progressed. So
Mhm.
that's good for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely say that a lot of the notes have been things that we've been working on pretty diligently. Um, I'm not sure whether or not that's effortful or effortless for everyone, but yeah, I do feel like things have been getting done for sure. I'm gonna read out loud what Nobu wrote in the chat. Um, Nobu said, "I'm really happy with how the process and organization is coming along. I feel like safety and Shirya are ripe right now. The Broom radio is kicking. Still waiting to see traction on monetization and collaborative healing and born days. 333 feels like it's kind of happening based on the organization work to me." That aligns, definitely. Absolutely. Um, yeah, I guess I'll say too. A brief like synopsis check-in is yeah, Shede Away was one of my goals, and I feel like it's really robust, actually, like more robust than I could have imagined, which is really exciting. I've also been finding space to talk about it more casually with other people who aren't in the broom, which I think is part of like tending outside of the broom, which has been really fun for me. Um, Another thing that I wrote about in my personal goals was continuing to tend and garden the Iyaga way, which I've been kind of doing through a channel called Womb Tech in the Iyaga lineage space, where I feel like Anna, Lexi, Gaia, Julie, Nobu, um, have been really collaborating as well with like fertilizing that way. We talk a lot about herbs, different. Recently, I've been sharing like different meditation techniques. I've been like slow launching, soft launching a lot of this stuff in the Iago way. I'm also getting some traction on an offering, a 3-week offering that I want to offer to those who are part of the Iaga lineage space. So for me personally, it's about like marketing is probably like the next thing for me regarding that lineage space, which I'm looking forward to. I also wrote about the broom radio, which period, it's doing its thing. It's doing what it needs to do. The safety way feels really robust, especially after yesterday's roundup call. Um, I'm also looking forward. I would love to see more on collaborative healing containers, and monetizing the broom is also something that I'm like dreaming up as well. So yeah, I'm holding space for anyone else to offer their synopsis.
Yeah, I think like just to add to what you were saying, it, I think like the monetization thing and just like really getting a sense of like traction on the radio. Um, I think we're working towards it. I think like we've started. I guess like what's not really spelled out in the goals is just like branding work and also like social media strategy. And I feel like some of the conversations we're having about that are sort of like I don't think it's really possible to test out like the feasibility of monetization without getting more concrete and sort of like building out a social media strategy because that's really like the way that things end up getting traction nowadays. So I'm looking forward to continuing that work. I think it's very much for me a case of like making the road by walking where we're writing a doc about it, we're refining the doc, and we're sort of like trying things out in real time. And I feel pretty good about how that's going. Um, but yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to like the next 3 months check-in where I would love to have like a social media strategy and like more activities planned, and then like have people trying them out and seeing how effective they are, and then like pivoting and seeing if like some of those things aren't as effective as we thought they would be. Maybe like we have new ideas about how it can be more effective. And then, maybe out like 3 months from now, we can be like, okay, we've given it like a pretty good shot with like a pretty formal strategy.
Mhm.
Um, Maybe there's nothing else we can try, and like we're not really getting the traction we want, and that's fine. I think that's like, I'm sure that like in the process of getting to that point, we will learn a ton either way. Um, maybe branding work will be more mature then,
Mhm.
and maybe we will be getting like a decent audience, and we can be like, okay, like it actually makes sense to try and drive people to a website where we can maybe drive membership or donations or like start making merch which is based on the branding. Maybe, I mean, I'm aware that we're recording this and I can imagine people listening to what I'm saying and being like, oh, you presumptuous motherfuckers, but like um I've seen that shit happen before. I've seen stupider stuff work, and I don't feel like this stuff is stupid. But I'd love to hear what y'all think of, what I feel like I'm laying out in a slightly novel way, stuff that I've said before.
Mhm. Yeah, I was kind of imagining the next iteration of this goal setting document having things that were like more brand focused, um, and things that were focused on growing audience size, and also, yeah, considering the kind of offshoot conversations that we've been having about promotion cycles of broom containers, it feels like the next natural step would be to um, look at this goal setting, maybe even look at the questions, or maybe like keep the questions as they are, but factor in the fact that the social media strategy, brand strategy is probably the next, production cycle that a lot of us are going to be focusing on alongside all the other things that we're focusing on as well.
Yeah, when we originally did this goal setting 3 months ago, I think I had just became a tender, or recently had become a tender, and yeah, there was such like a vast swath of ideas and projects that we kind of like wanted to execute on, and I had some of my own, which I might go over here, but I feel like especially in the last month, like we've really like um, kind of linked a lot of those together and maybe trimmed a few off, but we're like executing in a much more organized way, kind of on what we um, were envisioning collectively, I guess. And so I think that's really cool. I was kind of I was kind of like trying to do some of the technical back end stuff, like the Broom Radio, some of the Discord monetization, like technical options. And I guess with the radio, I think it's going really, really good. It wasn't what I had thought it was going to be at the time, but it turned out to be this like exceed my expectations. Um, Something that I'm still considering is for music specifically. We ran into some technical roadblocks where I felt like we were trying to fit a triangle into a star to get like some sort of music solution. And we recently had a DJ session in the Broom. I think the first one, maybe the second one. I wasn't able to attend, unfortunately, but it got me thinking about that again, and some easier ways that we could facilitate music and radio. And I'll share those later. But and yeah, I agree with what you guys were saying about the monetization. It feels like the chicken before the egg. But I will say that we have some technical solutions available to us that we demoed out in this 3 months that I think could work out even as interim solutions. But getting some of that social media strategy executed first makes a lot of sense.
Mhm. Yeah, thanks for saying so, Podrock. Um, Nobu wrote in the chat, I did a couple of listening sessions, or one. I feel like you did a couple, and like two of them were like informal, and then one of them was on the calendar. So yeah, I remember that, and I think that dang, yes, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That was before loopback audio hacks, and audio was probably Nobu says audio was probably quite a lot worse. Yeah, there's definitely been some improvement now that we have the loopback audio tutorial, though I have to try it myself. So I will report back, though I think that's what Agnew used to host his DJ session earlier this week. It was, I think, on Tuesday. So yeah, I will definitely be reporting back. Or VB cable, that's what it was. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, loopbacks I don't think works on Windows.
That's what it was. Okay, thank you. Yeah. VB cable. I'll have to download it. Yeah, and I what was I gonna say about monetization? It's gone, but it'll come back. I'll read out what Julie said in the chat as her reflection. Julie says, my reflection. I'm also happy with the way that the Broom Radio is developing and how branding is being carved out. so that any monetization we will eventually implement has a solid foundation to flourish off of. Yeah. We're working on it. We're working on it. Yeah. I was like, I don't know how solid the foundation is, but we're here and we're holding it up. So not to be negative at all, but I feel like what you said is very positive. So thank you.
Who's trying to give us money?
Yeah.
Give us the money. Just kidding, but not kidding at all. If you're
Yeah.
listening to this and you fuck with us and you want to fund us, hit us up.
Ashe. Yeah, y'all can email me. I'm at intrepidbodies@gmail.com. Please let me know. Well, I also say that too because I feel like fiscal cooperation is a product, but I mean production, but I won't get into that yet because we're still kind of unfolding goal setting, or we can go into that. It's up to y'all. I guess we're not going in order. But I also did want to talk about safety as a way, and a couple of other of the pins in production as well. But yeah, if you wanna pay us, run us that money, run it up. Ashe. Yeah. Okay. We have some suggestions in the chat on where to go to next. Just want to check in with goal setting. Does everyone feel like, yeah, like the conversation that we had was productive? Nobu, I was also wondering if you could make a note on, yes, if you could make a note on me potentially sending out or like creating a document to refresh the goal setting, or maybe we can do it on the same document, just like underneath our current submissions. But yeah, some note about me reformulating goal settings for us to do it again for another quarter, or to ideate on what the next quarter is going to look like. Thank you. Adam says, oh, well, Nobu says, I'm curious if this is making sense for you, Adam. Yes, I want to take a moment to also just welcome out loud Adam to his first tending call. Adam was nominated for tender last week. And then we also had conversations with Adam about tending last week. And then after the conversation, Adam accepted the role of tending, which is like, woo, yay. Yeah. So yeah, it's good to hear how this is like our tending call is sounding to you from your perspective. Adam says, yes, this all makes sense, listening and appreciating all the hard work and intention. Thank you. All right, so let's move on to GitHub migration regarding document and workflow management. Last tending call, we had all decided that we were going to, actually, I can't narrate it because I don't know what all the widgets in GitHub are called. So I would gladly welcome Podrock or Nobu to speak to what the expectations were for GitHub.
Yeah, I think most everybody gave it a good shot. College try, as they say, where I'm at. But no, it was great. And yeah, we just basically went through doing commits, just some basic commits that these particular commits happen to update a website with a new page. So just kind of like a real basic 101 type workflow on GitHub. And I think hopefully it was like a great learning experience for everybody. I feel like with the GitHub, for just like me personally, it's like I've been trying to fit a triangle into a star. So I'm going to invert that just to reuse it. But it's on some of the things I've been trying to make it do, I guess, from a website hosting perspective. But I think for our documents, internal documents for like tending 411 and gardening 411, it does make a lot of sense. And I think that is something that hopefully everybody's comfortable enough, like, doing some basic GitHub 101 stuff. If you're not, definitely we can do some more, and I can work with you guys one-on-one on that. But I feel like it might be time where we can move those documents to there for secure and easy organized access.
Sashay.
Yeah, I feel pretty ready to just like settle on having like one repository for the internal documentation for each organization. So like, we have an organization around publishing, we have an organization around tending, we have an organization around gardening, and you could maybe even extend that to having a repository for each lineage space, and then for the lineage spaces where we're keeping track of tasks, maybe we can have like a project management board. I don't know if y'all got a chance to like try out like creating tasks on those project management boards or like moving them around. But I feel like I didn't actually try it because I feel pretty convinced without trying it that yeah, I mean we've basically been using pins in the production channel, and I feel like often we do stuff and then we don't update the pins or we don't look at the pins when we're trying to figure out what to do, which I think is totally fine. But I think it's like one of those things where like if we have a process that we're saying, okay, like this is the process for doing something, and then it's not working for us, we should just change it. Versus like having like, let's say like the agreed upon process be different to how we're actually behaving. I just feel like when there's discrepancy between like what we've agreed upon and then like what we actually feel called to do, then it's kind of like broken window theory to me. Are you guys familiar with broken window theory?
Mm-mm.
Well, basically the idea is like once there's a broken window, like if you have a car and it's parked somewhere, once like if everything's working, or if you have a building and everything's like polished off, then it's easier for people to respect like keeping things in good shape. Whereas like once like there's a broken window, people kind of and like it stays there, people are like, oh, like this building's kind of decrepit, so they start like pissing on the walls and shit.
Yeah.
So it's like like the way I'm like relating it to like discrepancies between what we've agreed to do and then what we actually do is I feel like once that discrepancy opens up, then people are like, oh yeah, like it's like it's normal for us to like say we're gonna do stuff and then not do it, and then that kind of like creeps.
Yeah.
So I feel like yeah, like if it's not working for us, we should just change it. And I feel like what that means is like maybe just trying using like what we call like Kanban boards in some industries, where you have tasks and then you move them from like things that we want to do to things that we're doing to things which are like done but just need to be reviewed before they end up being like finalized, and then like you know marked as actually done. And then if that doesn't work, we can try something else, I would say.
Yeah.
So maybe I feel like there's an action item just to like transfer things from the production channel into like including non-pin threads
Mm-hmm.
into the relevant tending project management board. And then there's probably an action item around like moving documentation from the tending 411 channel and the publishing pins into GitHub. And then there's probably just like updating Discord so that we know going forward that like I would say like we should update the map so that whenever somebody joins like any of these organizations, they set up a GitHub account, we add their GitHub account to the relevant organization, and then we give that person like a little bit of like a 101 on how to use it.
That's
I think that's probably Yeah, like, does anybody not know what I'm talking about? / want to pump the brakes on that?
Yeah, just to expand on what he's saying, might make more sense if it doesn't already. That may make perfect sense. But like what we did when we committed that new page that you guys made, that was actually more advanced than moving information from these various areas in Discord to their respective repositories on GitHub. Um, Slightly more advanced. So, but basically using stack edit to format the information that's being transferred and then pasting that information into a file on the respective repository, and then committing it is basically all we have to do. For most of that, the project management moving is a little bit more complicated, and since we haven't done that, I'll get a tutorial on that, kind of similar to the making a page on a website one. I feel like that would be really helpful. And I don't mind kind of like spearheading, moving those tasks over as well. So, but yeah, that. It sounds good to me. I don't know if it sounds good to everybody else.
Yeah, it definitely sounds simple enough to me, especially with the stack edit formatting guide. And yeah, it just sounds to me, not to reduce anything, but it sounds like the work of transferring information is a matter of copy and pasting. And also, yeah, like Nobu said, updating the maps so that anyone else who enters like any of the organizational structures can just like jump onto GitHub and have access to like important documents. So yeah, I'm gonna hold it more space. I think Anna said that she was down to give this a try. But yeah, I feel ready to move into an action item where we're moving this information into GitHub. How about y'all?
Yeah, one really cool thing I'll just say is that the copy and paste that you're talking about is definitely accurate from my perspective. And Discord actually is mostly Markdown, which is the same language that GitHub uses for text formatting. So if you're wanting to paste something in Discord over to Stack Edit to kind of get it into GitHub, if you right click the post and hit copy text, it'll probably be like 99% formatted for GitHub. And Stack Edit you may want to polish it up a little bit in Stack Edit, but I think it'll be a pretty smooth process. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Thanks for saying that, Pablo. I'm just holding a little more space because I see that Nobu's typing.
This might be a little off topic, but I hope it's not too far off. I feel like I'm still a little bit confused about the Google groups that you set up, Nobu. I know you mentioned somewhere in text that you weren't sure, like if people understood. So I just
Yeah, I think that's pretty separate. But like Google Groups are basically just for email and calendaring. So GitHub doesn't deal with calendaring.
I see.
So like the goal there, and I haven't checked to see how it works, but it's like I added our personal email addresses to Google Groups so that we can invite, like the broom-tending at googlegroups.com to a calendar event. So that like when people respond, we actually know who's like signed up to come to a given event. B, if we want to invite people to an event, then if people make their calendar available or like their busy / free availability like open, then we should be able to use Google Calendar to like choose times when we know that people are available. And I think there's probably a little bit more like tutorializing there to like teach people how to do that, and also maybe like set like working hours, because I know we're working across different time zones, but like the goal there would be for people to be able to like try to schedule a meeting and then see what times are available for other people based on what's set up on their calendar. And I'll say that like in my experience, it's not always easy to get people to block off time on their calendars.
Mhm.
So if that feels like it's too much of a leap for us, then I would just like can the whole idea. But I would say that like it's so much easier to schedule meetings that way in my experience versus just like asking people when they're available and then like using our our brains to try and line up times which are good for everybody. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Um, honestly, to me, it feels like a little bit of a stretch that we'd be able to do it because like people don't always sync their calendars up to all of the calendars, which end up documenting like where they're spending their time and stuff like that. But I felt like called to try and like test the waters.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
I don't, yeah, I don't know. I get the sense that most people aren't really, they haven't had the experience of like calendaring in a way which is like efficient.
Mm. Yeah, I
So
mean,
we don't end up using it for the broom. I feel like just like giving people exposure to like what's possible from a technical perspective could be
Yeah.
useful.
I was thinking that too. Like, I feel like that really aligns for me because I guess like as we're getting into a rhythm with like just like production and like uh, what tasks we're taking on, like I find myself kind of like uh, I wouldn't say struggling necessarily, but like definitely there's a way where I feel like my time management could be more efficient and like just like flowing more easily than it is currently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't feel like it's like that far off that you would like be thinking about that. Like it kind of aligns.
Yeah, I think like part of the reason I've been thinking about this way is because like I was like kind of writing about getting things done, and I was like thinking of writing a post about it. But I feel like a lot of the people like in the tending organization, um, tend to learn by doing things versus by reading about them. And I'd say like in my personal experience, yeah, like once you've experienced what it's like to be part of a team, which is like really kind of like like working through the gears and sort of like building momentum around like communicating about what we're doing it, scheduling time to talk about things when text isn't okay. It's just like, oh shit, like, it's actually pretty effortless. Like, I would say, like, it's probably not unfair to draw a parallel to like the goal setting exercise and then actually kind of getting organized so that we're working on things. It's like when you're just sort of like swimming with a bunch of people who are doing things, it's much easier to like swim along versus like creating your own system and then testing it out, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, that,
I'm gonna pause so I can make some notes.
Thank you, Nova. And thanks for asking that question, Anna, or like surfacing that. I guess before we move on, I just want to read out what Nobu put in the chat regarding the GitHub migration task. So Nobu says, that sounds good to me, Hoda. I have Podrock down for moving tasks over. Any tender want to sign up for moving pins over to the repository or updating maps and channel structures so that people get access to what they need to join these organizations? Lexi said that she feels like she can try moving the pins over to the repository part.
That's awesome. Thanks, Lexi. And 100% feel free to anybody who's moving anything over or working with it, feel free to DM me, whatever. I don't mind like one-on-one, like, going over this. I'll do the tutorial on the project stuff too, but tutorials only cover so much, right? So like y'all just don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, thanks for saying Hard Rock. Awesome. Okay, Lexi's down for that. Nobu said that he'll update the maps and also check how things are going with updating repositories and moving tasks over. Thank you. Awesome. All right. Just feeling into if there's any more questions about GitHub, migration, pins, restructuring the organization channels. No, that feels complete to me. How about y'all? Bangs the gavel. Rightio, then let's move on. I don't know what accent that was. Yes, I'm definitely looking forward to that as well, Nobu. Nobu says, I'm looking forward to separating out documents versus chatting. Absolutely. I think both are important. And I agree with what you said, like having spaces where both can flourish to their like maximum capacity. I think conversationally and organizationally, I'm like, that is a dream. So I'm excited. Yeah, I'm actually excited about this GitHub migration team. So yeah, we'll see how that flows. Anna says same, thank you. So I'm gonna go through the pins. But before I go to the pins, is there any other like pertinent production, anything that's coming up around production for anyone? I'm just laughing at stuff in the chat. I haven't heard Alt B's accent, who is a user in the broom. The pod actually. So I'll just have to like piecemeal my imagination together with that. We are neat hackers with GitHub accounts now. Yes, it's official. It just started raining really hard here too, guys. So I don't know. I always take rain as a good omen. So all right, I'm gonna look through pins, just kind of flex my executive decision making skills here. So in the pins, well, we've talked about document and workflow management, which is exciting. Some other things that feel like tangential for me right now. What feels the most alive is a general check-in about the branding documents and the different facets of the branding document. Safety feels alive to me, but I still feel like I want to kind of build up to that. Yeah. So any updates on branding? I guess I'll like narrate from my perspective what they're looking like. It feels like some of the tasks that we're working on, the productions that we're working on, are centered in the branding project that we're doing. Sorry, I'm using so many different words: branding, project, production. But I feel as though one of the things that I've been focused on was the style guide, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from Lexi and some feedback from Nobu on, I guess, concretizing more of the style guide. I'll also say that I assumed, and this may have been oversight on my part, but I kind of wrote the style guide assuming that folks knew what the style guide is. So I don't know. I guess I just want to say moving forward, if there's anything that's implemented or like we talk about and we like are like, I don't know, for me personally, I'm like excited about. And if you're partnering with me on that and you have no idea what that thing is, please just ask me, because I would rather like front load information about the what of something before I start working on it. But I will say that the style guide gave me a lot to reflect about on, and it also gave me time to think about continuity and like brand presence regarding how the Broom Radio and also other organizations of the Broom show up on social media. But that was because it was like part of the document that I decided to own and like drive. So I wonder if anyone else who has been driving particular projects or particular parts of that document wants to speak to their process. Or just like update on anything that you are working on. I guess I can go and like also look at the document.
Yeah. I didn't realize I was unmuted the whole time, and then I started talking after I muted myself. But yeah, I think like the things I'm mostly thinking about are like the website architecture and like user journeys. And I feel like user journeys are kind of like a core piece for like getting to like user research and comparative research. But yeah, and then also I think like the social media stuff I kind of see as growing between like as like it's like kind of bridging between like what's happening, and then also like I think user journeys sort of help to surface some of like the needs for a style guide, right? So I think when Hoda was talking about like how do these different organizations show up in social media, how do we like promote continuity between those things, I feel like that's kind of speaking also to what user journeys are about for me. So in the document, I've kind of like talked about how, you know, like a lot of organizations, I don't know if they still do this, but like a lot of organizations have like so-called like growth teams or like marketing teams. And those marketing teams, in my experience, tend to think about user journeys through the lens of like what's called like acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, and referral. Right. So like broadly speaking, activation is like, okay, like acquisition is sort of like how does somebody become familiar with your brand? Like literally familiar, as in like they kind of like get invited into like participation with it. And then activation is sort of like, okay, like, I mean, these things are kind of foggy, right? But like activation is like, okay, how do you make it official? It's like, acquisition might be like, okay, they see you, they become interested. Activation is like they sign up or they follow, let's say.
Right.
Retention is like, okay, once they've followed, how do you get them to see you again? Because, like, I'd say like things have gotten even worse since I started doing this work professionally, but I used to run a growth team at Etsy. I guess I'm kind of doxing myself, but like how do people like end up like coming back once they've shown interest? And that's more difficult now because I think that like people's attention is like even more scattered than it used to be. But I'm gonna mute Alfie because
I just did it. Sorry, Albi, I muted you. But welcome to the public tending call.
But yeah, like retention is like, yeah, if somebody's like followed or they've joined the Discord server, like how do you get them to come back? I think that's something that's really interesting for us, right? Because I think, we've seen people come in, have good conversations, then disappear. Sometimes block me. But yeah, and then, once you've retained somebody, like you've got someone coming back on something, like the way that like probably organizations like Facebook or Twitter document this stuff, and this kind of gets into like financial targets and like user engagement targets, is like they look at like monthly active users, right? So how many people are like using a platform at least once a month, let's say, is like a way of like capturing like our ability to retain people. And then for different organizations it's different. Like maybe they're already paying by the time they're retained, but like in our situation, you know, we're giving people access to a lot of the content that we're producing without asking them to pay. So like, okay, can we get people to donate? Can we get people to like support us in some way, or like value like what they're getting out of the broom? You know, I know there's a bunch of people who like have literally said like, since I've been here, things have like shifted a lot for me, and I think there's a lot of people who are even talking about shifts that they experience inside the broom. But like, you know, frankly, like, how do we get people to value that? Because
Yeah.
you know, it's tough. You know, like social media, I would say parasocial media, as I like to call it, has gotten a lot of creators, and like I want to say even like wisdom keepers, into a habit of giving away shit for free so they
Oh,
can get people interested. So it's like, you know, you go to the supermarket, let's say there's like 15 aisles where there's things you can buy, and then maybe there's like 2 or 3 stations where you get free samples. I would say like the internet is like 95% free samples and
yep.
then 5% products on shelves. Um, and that kind of sucks because I think that people end up competing with each other to provide free samples and make their free samples like, you know, super delicious and stuff. But I would say that like the nutritional value of what they're giving away for free ends up suffering. And I think that's like a huge part of like what you know, sometimes see referred to as spiritual war. I think it's a huge part of what sometimes people like believe people are being histrionic in labeling as spiritual war. But I think if you look at like the way that people's awareness has been contoured by some of the dynamics which are available on parasocial media, I would say most people are like way more distracted, way more disintegrated, way more triggered. If you go to the Levant thread, I think you have good examples of people just like, I think like Base Monster Tiff called it like spewing emotional diarrhea. It's like, yeah, this is a fucking spiritual war. Like parasocial media has absolutely destroyed collective and individual awareness. So this is like really important to me. But going back to user journeys, yeah, I think like, you know, I would say like in general, people in the broom who are like engaged with the broom, maybe some people who are even not engaged in the broom are maturing and refining spiritually. And I think, you know, working in the broom to make sure that that's possible is not something which is sustainable without revenue. So that's what the revenue step's about. And then referral is basically like when you get people, ideally who are already paying, but maybe just people who are engaged with the broom, to get other people excited about engaging with the broom in some way, whether it's just like sharing links to podcasts, whether it's like retweeting the social media content that we produce in relation to podcasts, etc. So I'm just going to pause there and see if that makes sense for people. I realize I've been talking for a while, but I think it's, I don't know, hopefully like the frame is useful for understanding like how branding work all fits together.
Yeah, I also want to say that that was pretty easy to follow for me because I'm also looking at the growth funnel and user journey part of the document. So I just, like, if anyone feels like Winabu was like putting down just like whiz past their brains, I think that it's also kind of the skeleton of what you shared is in this document, and so it's very clear to me.
Cool. Oh, I see Anna typing something. Cool. Glad that was clarifying, Anna. So yeah, you know, I've kind of like split that out by channel, so we can start to look at like what we can do in each channel at each stage of this funnel to get people like engaged. And then I mean, since it's clarifying, I feel like in some way I was kind of holding before I move on to the next step, which is to like build out a similar thing for like how we can get people to understand the work of people who are contributing to the broom, because I think probably it makes sense that, you know, I would say that, I mean, we've talked about it before, but like, you know, I introduce quite a few of the people I work with privately to the broom because I don't want to be their sole provider of soul provision. But
Oh,
you know,
bar-
I don't want to be. I don't like, like we've talked about, like wanting to be anti-culty or like cult proof, right? And I think, when people have like relationships with healers and they don't get relationships with other people who are also spiritual practitioners or other healers, then often they end up in dire straits. Like some of the people I've worked with would claim that that's happened to them with me. And I would say some of the people I've worked with, like I've personally played a pretty big role in like rescuing from what seemed like pretty extractive relationships with individual spiritual practitioners. Like I'm talking about people who were being screamed at by the spiritual practitioners they worked with. I'm talking about people who were about to like maybe move to a different country with people that they were engaged in spiritual practice with, which I think is like really fucking precarious. So I think like one part of it is like when I'm working with somebody, I want to get them into a community of integrated spiritual practitioners so that they become attached to me. I want to get them into a community with other spiritual practitioners so they can question like what they're learning from me, et cetera, et cetera. But then also, I think I can also benefit from other people doing the same, and other spiritual practitioners in the broom can benefit from me doing that. So we can just sort of like try to build a community of praxis which has like pretty explicit safety principles, which has a bunch of practitioners who are willing to submit themselves to processes of ensuring safety. And then like that's kind of like what that second user journey matrix looks like for me, is also making sure that those practitioners are getting compensated for the work they're doing. Because in lieu of people actually subscribing or donating to the broom, I feel like that's maybe one of the only ways that some of us can have our time compensated for, is if we end up doing private work with people who end up in the broom because of all of our work, if that makes sense.
definitely.
So if the user journey funnel that I spelt out just for getting people engaged with the broom makes sense, then I'll kind of build out something pretty similar for getting people engaged with people who are putting work in for the broom. And I know y'all, like some of y'all don't have like private offerings. So I don't want y'all to feel excluded, but I think that's part of what makes it even more important that we find ways to monetize the work we're doing in the broom. B, I think also, like in other industries, I think they call this stuff work trade, right? It's like hopefully some of the stuff y'all are doing for the broom is like educational, right? In ways that like perhaps is not, like education is not necessarily available or well tailored to like the way you like to learn. So I kind of think about some of the stuff that Lexi's been moving through with like doing social media promotion, where it's like, yeah, I would say I feel like Lexi's learning a lot from that. And maybe, traditional educational institutions don't provide opportunities to learn that kind of stuff, whether it's about social media promotion in concreteness or whether it's just about like, managing one's own work and getting feedback on it and preempting feedback and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like that's another way that we can be compensated for our work, is just like learning skills which we can perhaps apply to more matrix friendly occupations or vocations, I should say.
Absolutely. I feel like that checks out for me. And I think you alluded to kind of building something out like this matrix of, or this diagram for Can you like clarify a little bit more about like what this secondary like growth funnel would look like, or are we just not there yet?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I would say that it's kind of like where in the growth funnel, the first growth funnel, I've talked about like getting people engaged with the broom and
Mm.
getting people who are like, sorry if you heard me burp. um, Getting people who are like engaged with the broom to like come back, and then eventually like compensate people in the broom. I would say just like replace that with somebody like me or Hoda or somebody else who's making private offerings available in the broom.
Mhm.
It's like, how do we get people involved with Hoda's work? How do we get people who are involved with Hoda's work to come back to Hoda's work? How do we get people to pay Hoda?
Hey, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and anybody else who ends up contributing in this way, like Adam's doing podcasts. Maybe he feels like he's learning enough that that's compensation enough, but maybe I know Adam's got other skills that he's honed vocationally and also educationally, and maybe there's ways to get him compensated for that stuff, and same goes for y'all.
Yeah. Yeah, this really aligns to with like a conversation I was having yesterday with a friend. This is a little tangential about how like we're like how most of us, especially like on parasocial media, those of us who run independent businesses on parasocial media and organizational businesses on social media are kind of aware that it's like spiritual warfare, but also while trying to like tip the scales of attention and value um to where, and we've talked about this quite a bit in the broom of how to curtail people's awareness to more like generative things for themselves and their like livelihood. And it feels like, I mean, of course, personally for me, it does feel that way. Maybe it's not obvious, so maybe I shouldn't say, of course, but it feels like for me, it's been that way where a lot of the skills that we're building, especially as we dive deeper into like branding and user journeys and also like hopefully fiscal cooperation, I'm like, yeah. Sorry, I'm laughing at what's in the chat. Yeah, it's just been helping me refine and also build up like transferable skills that not only help me like structuring my life, but um, it feels like I'm building skills that, yeah, like you said, work in other organizational capacities. Like if I want to go get a job and like there's a team and they have like a very similar structure to the one that's like being introduced here in the broom or like for tending, then the gap of me trying to understand their system kind of gets closed. And so like that's just one example of other transferable skills that I think people are picking up on. And then I also like what you said about bringing the skills that we have from different educational backgrounds and vocational backgrounds into the broom to leverage that so that the value of what we're offering has this marketability and ensures, well, I wouldn't say ensures, but gestures at um compensating people for their cultivation and their cultivation skills. So I'm like, me, I always talk about like culture shifts. And so I'm like, it does, if we like look at this stuff in a bubble, for me, it feels like a lot. But then if I zoom out a little bit and look at the current like climate and the world of ideas that we live in, I'm like, this tracks for me and definitely tracks. I'm going to read what's in the chat. Nobu says the broom is a Kali Uchis fan pipeline. Absolutely. I was not that familiar with her work until the broom, so thank y'all for that. Nobu also writes, to be honest, I feel like most orgs I've worked in don't have structures like this, but maybe I feel like they could benefit from it. And Nobu also adds, and yeah, I also feel like the experience we have in different industries and org structures is cultivating our process here. And that can also feed into other vocations we end up in, Ashe. Some like lifestyle too, like even when we were talking briefly about the calendar or like the shared Google group, I'm like, yeah, like those things that actually help streamline people's like lives too, um, along with vocations. Podrock says same. And Nobu says, but yeah, I feel like a lot of this stuff is from the tech industry. And to be honest, the barriers to entering those kinds of orgs are overly high and unfair in my experience. I agree. I guess I'll hold a little bit more space too if anyone else, any other tenders want to add or just like reflect out loud before we move on to the next item. Or yeah, because we're still on branding. And yeah, like we said, a lot of this stuff is connected. So I'm like, it's interesting. I never really expect us to like ever jump on these calls and be like, okay, this is what I've presented. It's perfect and it's done. So yeah, I also welcome if people are like, oh yeah, I'm still working on this or I need clarity on this. Because yeah, all of these funnels I think are connected regarding the branding document.
I guess I can update about competitor research. I made like a table in the doc. I don't know if any of y'all got a chance. I did it. I haven't filled it out. I haven't filled in the details of it. I haven't really felt moved to do that yet, to be honest. And at first I was like a little bit, I guess I was a little anxious about not feeling moved to like complete the table that I started, but I guess I kind of have confidence that, oh, I didn't realize that you guys didn't know I had started on it. I'm glad I mentioned it. Yeah, the table is in there in the doc. If you want to take a look on it, at it rather. And yeah, I'm just kind of like waiting for the nudge to fill in the details of it.
Sweet. Yeah, I just saw it. This is awesome. This is so cool. Yes. Come on, variables. I'm sorry, I'm just like reading like the parts of the top of it that read like size of business, product offered, customer base, product model, promotion strategy, and that feels really complete to me. Ashe. Anna saying that she completed the table or worked on it and created the structure while during a co-working session with Lexi. I don't know why my words just got jumbled then. That's super cool. I don't know why I'm hearing that song in my head. My girl wants to party all the time, party all the time. anyways. Okay, back to the meeting. Okay, Julie says, yeah, Adam just joined. I was thinking that. I forgot what the name of that song is, so if you could share it even in the chat, I'm gonna listen to it later. Feels like, yeah, it feels timely. I'm gonna read what Julie wrote out. Julie said, I'm still working on user research outline, which includes the purpose for it, interview survey questions for Broom and non-Broom members. Ashe. Thanks for the update, Julie. Yeah, and feel free to give a holler if you need like any structural support on creating that. Or just like somebody like bounce ideas off of. You can like DM me. Or yeah, just like at me if you need me. Nobu writes, maybe when we start shifting to visual assets and the broom.us, which is the website, we may end up taking screenshots of some of these competitors. Yeah, especially when thinking about visual assets. I feel like that's really aligned. Yeah. Julie says, so I'm thinking ahead a little bit and I'm wondering about where would be the best place to place the answers from the interviews and the surveys. The doc, I think, would be a good place to put it. I know it's a big doc, but I feel like it's a living document, meaning that things are going to be added and subtracted, probably. And what else was I going to say? Oh, I think Nobu already said it in the chat. Julie says, I'll place what I have so far in the branding doc after the call. That's aligned. Thank you. Nobu says, I feel like the doc might be good for the outline and then also the summaries of the response and answers, Ashe. But maybe we can link out the full in-depth answers to the survey. We can put the responses there in the doc, then kick them out after summarizing. Yeah, absolutely. Raw data like audio interviews, you mean, or like just the responses to the surveys, Julie? Yeah, I wonder, and this might be me thinking ahead, if audio interviews would be subject to transcribing, that we could have that raw data, and then yes, and then where to put the survey information. We can automate it to the tending log, or we can. I'm also thinking maybe just have a what is it called? Not Excel, but the Google Docs version of it, where the responses get fed into a graph or a chart. Or in tending log, yeah. Google Sheets. Thank you for that, Julie. But that might be another like document lift that we might not want to do, which is fine. Um, and Nobu writes, because yeah, I'm still thinking that at some point the doc might serve as a pitch to collaborators or people who want to fund. Yeah, I'm still kind of seeing the document as something like that. Yeah, I think that's we can kind of maybe like meditate on it and see if tending log is aligned. I'm not against it as a place for the responses to that survey to feed into. That actually might feel more aligned. Okay. Julie says, I was thinking of using Google Forms for the survey. Ashe. Yeah, Google is pretty legit. It works. It's much more accessible than like Word, I'd say. Maybe not like user friendly, but like people can just, create a Google account for free. Nobu says, yeah, as a former Microsoft employee, Google Doc blew that shit out of the water for real. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Dr. Google. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Julie. Julie asks, would someone else be willing to automate the survey Google form when the time comes, like to the tending log? Yeah, I think it should be pretty easy. Yeah, I think it should be pretty easy. And if you want to learn how to do it, I can like record how to create a webhook because I learned how to do it and I can put it in server help. So Nobu, if you can write that down for me as a task, like creating a webhook, recording it, and posting it to server help. Yeah, tasks. Period. Julie says, flexing my coding skills. I swear, after we get this branding stuff straight, all of us are going to be coders, hackers, e-girls, e-boys, all that good stuff. I'm not projecting. I just really feel it. Tumblr page making, yes. Everybody break out all of your MySpace HTML coding gnosis right now. We're already leet. What's leet? Elite. Her. Yeah, I used to spend hours like coding my MySpace page to get it just right, and then I would change it again the next weekend. It was pretty legit. It gave me like, I don't know why I was called as a third. No, I was like 15 to like dedicate myself to recoding my MySpace page every weekend. But in hindsight now, as my 31-year-old self, I'm like, yeah, I can see why. Julia says that in Tumblr page making in school snowflake coding class. Nobu says we must all watch the film called Hackers with Johnny Lee Miller and Angelina Jolie and Matthew Lilley and some other cats. Yes. Homework. Tending homework. Dang. We have some more exchange going on about Office. Podrock says, "Oof, my org spends." I hope I'm not doxing them by saying this. They spend $270,000 a year for Office 365, but Outlook really is pretty clutch compared to say Gmail. That's all MS has over Google, in my opinion. Yeah. I've also used Outlook in my grad program. That shit was tricky though. Nobu says, yeah, I worked on Microsoft Exchange at MS, basically one of the only dope orgs at MS, in my opinion. Podrock says, it might be worth saying that it's for 1,200 people. Nobu says, laugh my ass off. Damn. Not me narrating all of the nuances. Okay, I'm going to move away from the branding doc. And Podrock says, bro, you should read for Audible. Don't tempt me. I've definitely been offered read aloud positions for different audiobook orgs, but I declined. Okay, let's see. I'm just looking at the different productions. Just laughing at something in the chat. Safety as a way. Yes, thank you for that pivot, Anna, but I declined. Yeah, I don't know why I'm so picky about what jobs. Maybe I'll have to like explore that later. Nobu writes, should we be promoting the stick? Yes. I think for me, the next step personally for the stick is I already have like a page on my website. It's private, and a page on my Calendly, but it's private to share all of the work that we've been doing with the stick. So I think, yeah, from my perspective, it feels ready to put some of the content that we've created around it feels ready to put there. I also am glad that the roundup conversation was recorded yesterday. Depending on whether or not we upload it to the podcast, Lexi did share the recording, and then Lexi offered to share all the other recordings. And then I was like, oh, nah. But then upon further reflection, I was like, I'm glad that the the roundup recording was available, because I think I'm going to link that to my website as well. Nobu already posted on his website on safety, and he says that I got some good feedback. Do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah. I posted it. I haven't shared it around a ton. I definitely agree with what you're saying about. I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's like a little stuff I need to clear about like really promoting what I talked about with regard to allegations against me. But I definitely, I'd say like my vaster self is supportive of posting that and really just like leading. Yeah, just like leading by example, I want to say, and just like being very open. And yeah, in some ways I feel I'm hesitant to use the word like role modeling, but just like, being like walking off the plank first, and then like tying what I've been saying about safety to that, and also opening myself up for like repair where I have not been like living up to my own ideas with regard to safety, and hopefully that makes it easier for people to like volunteer themselves as tribute. But then, yeah, I took another look at the broom.us/safety, and I feel like pretty good about sharing it. I think like styling and all that stuff still to come, but I would love to like get the stick as a lineage space working with like real data. I know like some of us filled out that form, and I would say like I dug pretty deep to fill it out in the way I did about the practitioner that I filled it out about. But I'd love us to get into, you know, a bit of a process of looking at those submissions and then seeing how that informs how we deal with more submissions going forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like maybe we kind of get to a point where it's like, yeah, actually, like we're ready to have a Google Doc where it's like really simple, but like maybe for each practitioner, for the people who've shared things, um, you know, anonymously or non-anonymously, and they've said that they're willing for that stuff to be shared publicly. You can imagine like a heading for practitioner A, and it's like this has been, you know, maybe someone says something and we've reached out to see if like it's substantial or not. Maybe that person has declined to substantiate, and therefore we're just like, okay, someone said this about this person. Use your own discernment. We feel like it's fit for publishing. Maybe
Mm,
like two or three other people said stuff like this. And it's like we don't have to go as deep as like Maxim went with Hanjo and Ananda. We can
yeah.
just be like, this is our safety principles. This is the form. This is what people said they were willing to submit and publish. And we have reached out to these people to get feedback about the allegations which are being made about them. They ignored us or whatever, you know, like whatever it may be. But I would like us to start playing with some real data. And if
Mm,
that means like putting out what we've talked about with regard to safety, we've also talked about like recording a little bit of a video to talk about it so it can go on the same document, let's say,
mm,
or eventually website page for this kind of stuff. But I think that will be helpful for us in terms of yeah, like getting some traction on what we're trying to do
mm.
and sort of operationalizing it, and also getting a little bit of a peek on like how much work it's going to be, and like
Yeah.
whether we support, like how can we support this work, you know. Maybe
Mm,
right now we're thinking we're going to be chasing up each little like report and like trying to you know get on the phone with like you know Mariam Hasnar and stuff, and it's like yeah, maybe it's just too much work, so then we can like scale it back and be like, okay, we're just going to publish whatever people share with us that we think is coming from an integrated place
mhm.
or something. I don't know. I'm not trying to make threats, but I'm just trying to be realistic.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I think that's useful to think about, like the lift that it would take. I think the production part or building the spine of this process has kind of been completed, and it feels like the next natural progression is to work with the raw data so that there is kind of like an established framework for yeah, how much work it would take, how long it would take for these things to be rolled out, how long in general it takes people to respond. And I feel like I would want to work with that data personally so that things can like in the stick not only are like moving, but that we can kind of what's the word I'm looking for, like punctuate how much effort it's going to take to kind of like get this process going, because I feel like it's been in the ideating stage for a while, and then now I'm like personally like ready to see what it's like to work with material data, and just kind of like flex my discernment, like you said, like to as somebody who is in the safety inspector seat to be like, okay, is this report coming from an integrated place? Are these this subset of reports, for example, maybe they're coming from a non-integrated place? And I think um, working with that would be helpful to just kind of mature out some of the things that we've been dreaming up for the stick in general. Hmm. So I'm kind of curious now too about the recorded episode, if that is something that we want to do, which is like select, it looks like to me like select an agreed upon time where we gather in a radio channel, probably similar to this, and invite Craig, probably similar to what we're doing now, and speak to safety principles. Um, and I also don't know if that would stop. It hasn't. I can say hasn't stopped us from publishing other safety materials, or materials around our personal safety principles. So I'm kind of thinking about what the next or action item would be around this, besides publishing it and just sharing it to the public. You guys think I'm missing anything on that, or?
No, I don't think so. I kind of forgot about that I had suggested doing that because I guess the timing was not quite right on it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, like if it aligns for people, I would still love to gather and record something like official for safety principles. If it feels like a more aligned time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely feels aligned to me. I'm just reading what Nobu put in the chat. Yeah, definitely. Oh yeah. I mean, if we're worried about length, I don't think that's a problem because I was like, we can talk, but Nobu's suggesting I feel like maybe we could record something that's like 10 minutes, edited. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. I also like kind of forgot that that's an option, to be honest. Like when I was thinking about it, I was like, oh, it's definitely going to be like, like an hour and a half or something. But you're right that it doesn't have to be. We can have dramatic piano music in the background. Yeah.
And then, so what had happened was,
Well, I hesitate to take on like action items because I just I feel like I'm probably gonna end up asking for your help, Julie, with the roundup description, by the way. That just occurred to me since you offered. Um, but I guess maybe when I get home I can do a or not a Calendly link. What did we decide to do for figuring out times? Doodle?
I think we're trying on Google Groups, but I think Doodle,
Oh,
yeah, I don't know. I feel like for scheduling this in particular, then I think anything that would help us get on the same page time wise and get us to an agreed upon time. So yeah, Doodle might work.
okay. I mean, I know we talked about Google Groups, but I didn't know if that was like ready to go per se. I thought it was going to be like in the future type thing.
Mm.
Yeah. So I guess I'll make a doodle then in that case to try and figure out a time.
Okay. Sounds good. Action item for Anna to create a Google link or Doodle link. Anyways. But yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Nobu. Cool. I definitely did call it Doodle. Duty. Duty link. Um, Dang, there was something else coming up for me, but it just got wiped from my brain. It was about safety. Oh yeah, it'll come back. But we have about 1 minute till it's 11 o'clock Louisiana time. And I want to just I'll take a step back and hold space to see if there's anything else production wise that anyone would like to comment on, update us on, ask questions about, get support on. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
I've got something, but I'm going to say it in the chat in the interest of time later.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything to do for the next 30 minutes, so I'm not rushing anyone. I just wanted to be mindful of y'all's time as well. being barred from starting any productive conversations about production. How so? Well, I guess even me asking that probably challenges how you're being barred. My bad. Ashe. Yeah, can I be honest? My freaking third eye and crown have been throbbing like with energy this entire call. And like my left shoulder, like that just kind of like whole area. Yes. Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. I've noticed that I've facilitated both open tending calls. That just must mean y'all like my voice. It was. It was right after you got your eye tattoo. Or wait, no. That was oh shit. No. Oh, I don't know. I think it was around the same time.
This was my first open tending call, you guys.
Hey.
Too, because I don't remember why I wasn't at the last one. Maybe it was when no, it couldn't have been when I was traveling here.
No, you just left us hanging high and dry. No, I'm just kidding.
I did. I think that was like when I was in the midst of crisis or something. I don't know what was going on.
Yeah, I do processing stuff. Mm, I remember that. Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for facilitating this meeting, Hoda. I feel like you've done a very nice job, if I do say so myself.
Thank you. I'm doing like a very kawaii face with like peace signs next to both my cheeks. Thank you. Kawaii. I'm sure Podrock does have an emoji react for that. Thank you, Pod. Okay, I am gonna go through pins. Since we've been pretty structureless the entire time. Just heathens. I'm just kidding. All right, so it's interesting because it's because I'm on my phone. I'm looking at the production pins and it's not showing me which threads are pinned. It's showing me which messages are pinned. So let me look at that. I think it was Anna who pinned what I shared about fiscal cooperation. What I was thinking about was kind of how to gather data and I guess do my own personal research on how nonprofit orgs organize themselves. I was also thinking about the Broom as an organization being incorporated or being an LLC. I think Nobu and I talked about, Nobu was talking about his process in that thread about working with international, I think it was like international companies, and then how to incorporate them in New York. I think that was it. And I have a little bit of experience with making Intrepid Bodies an LLC in Louisiana, and it's pretty affordable. Yes, and I guess I just want to hold a little bit of space for discussion around that. Yeah, our conclusion was Nobu writes, let's see about when we have like 100 subscribers, 100 subscribers on any given channel.
Yeah, and I might be wrong on this, but I feel like we should also mindfully register it because wherever we do register, there'll be tax implications potentially depending on country of origin, state, etc. So I'm just going to mention that. It's not fun, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's life, man. Thank you, Podrock. Yeah, because I think when you added that into the conversation, I was like, my brain did like like melted in my head, and I was like, oh gosh. But something worth considering. But it does also make sense that it's something we maybe consider as we earn retention, earn subscriptions, and earn pay from the work that we're doing, so that like some of that stuff can be legitimized later. Not that I'm like putting it off. It just quite literally just feels like a little immature to talk about it right now.
Yeah.
So that is still in the oven. Talking about Blu-rays in the chat. Okay, so let me move on to another pin. Um, 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 um. So there's some notes on the stick where Nobu says, I wonder if I should read these out, but there are pin messages about the form, the Google form. So I'll just read it out loud. Nobu writes, should we make the form inputs to ask whether what is being shared is okay for sharing outside the stick? What about promoting for social media handles / email identifiers per person, where we planned to be active and allow messaging? Also, at the bottom of the form, it says that we are signaling to intent to join the stick. Do we have thoughts about how that would happen? Because right now, we only have space in the stick that's really for @safety inspectors. Also, yes, this is probably not a tending question, but for now, most of our discourses in this thread, not me reading the end and seeing that it's not a tending question. Uh, I think that we've been floating around the idea of changing some of the markers in the Google form regarding the stick. And yeah, I guess it feels aligned. Please disagree. It feels aligned to talk about. I can definitely be put down for changing the items on the safety form to reflect a funnel where people can join the stick. if if that's something that we want, where I could put an invite to the stick way lineage space in the broom and put that in the form. But I also know that we're I'm just kind of out here, y'all.
I
Sorry.
mean, I think like there's a part of the safe, like the broom.us/safety where we talk about what the stick is, and maybe we can just have a link to like the way channel called the stick if you're interested in like participating in the lineage. I don't think it has to be on a form because I kind of feel like that. I mean, if I'm thinking about people who actually fill out the form, I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking they're going to be people who are still kind of processing stuff that happened to them. And I
Right.
wouldn't say that they're probably going to be super likely to be ready to be a safety inspector like I think if people are processing safety experiences, maybe they're still probably in a stage where they might want to be a safety inspector out of like some kind of like perceived vendetta or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
they're gonna try to come into this stick as a lineage, like Alexander Skarsgård's character in Northman or something. Just bit lit up.
I love
So
that movie.
I was just talking about it with my friend today because she was relating her experience to me, and I was just like, "Oh yeah, that's like berserker genetics, right?"
Yo.
But yeah, I think putting a link to join the stick in the part about the stick, like in that part of the document where we talk about what the intended purpose is, or just before then. I don't know. We can figure it out, I guess. But I'll put an action item for like adding a way to join the stick as a safety inspector at the broom.us/safety.
Thank you. Yeah, it might be something to meditate on too. But okay, I'm gonna go through the rest of the pins. I wish I would have done this on my laptop. Sorry, y'all. Try to be more discerning. Hmm.
The way that Discord changed the way that pins appear. If anybody who works at Discord's listening to this for for any unknown reason, the way y'all changed the pinning experience between desktop and mobile is atrocious. But we're not going to be using pins for that kind of stuff anymore. So peace.
Whoop. Yeah, so fuck off, y'all. Just kidding. And if you guys are listening, like, monetize us. But anyways, okay. So that feels good. I'm looking at the pinned messages, and a lot of it is stuff that we have talked about. Are there any pins on y'all's end that I have not mentioned that we can surface now?
Mm.
It's 11:11 here. Mm. No. Nobody says I have a pin message for making a Tabak and Maria offering that I'm gonna start working on in 2 minutes. Ashe. Julie said, for the question regarding follow up on this safety Google form, could we put in different option? I think that's worth thinking about. Yeah. Yeah. And then Julie says, my thinking is that it gives us room to check if it feels aligned for us to follow up. Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's I was just thinking about. I think people can just select that they don't want to be followed up with, because I think that there's a part on the form that says that. Meow. All right, y'all. So I'm feeling into my fields. I don't. Oh, okay. There's a yes, no, and unsure. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like people can say they're unsure. Maybe I can see like a timeline where people do receive a follow back, and then they say like they don't want anything to be published, that they just wanted to um like I don't know. I guess I'm kind of like imagining if a couple people have indicators about one particular practitioner, and like let's say 3 people submit, but one of those people or 2 of those people or all of those people say that they don't want to be linked to the information, you can still kind of record that account and add it to like a main of different accounts. So maybe we can change the wording. Yeah. Nobu says I like indifferent more than unsure.
I can imagine, yeah, if like 3 people were like, yeah, I don't want to share anything, but then maybe they know that there's like more people sharing things. Maybe they might change their mind. Maybe. So many hypotheticals, but let's see how we go.
Yeah. All right. I feel good about dismissing Craig and letting Craig go to sleep. How do y'all feel about that?
I'll say that like a couple of friends have said they've been listening in to the Broom Radio, and that's been very cool. I think like having tending calls like this probably going to be like very uninteresting for a lot of people, but for some people it might be like very, very interesting. So thanks y'all for listening if you listened.
Yeah. Thank you.